Let me tell you something about real connection. I'm not talking about looks, money, or attention. I'm talking about the type of woman who touches a man's soul. The kind of presence he feels even when you're not around. That connection doesn't come from chasing him, begging for attention, or trying to be perfect. It comes from who you are at your core. A man feels you in his soul when you show up as a woman with standards, peace, and purpose. You want to know what really leaves an imprint on a man's spirit. It's when you love him without losing yourself. When you can stand next to him, not behind him, not in front of him, but beside him. A woman who has faith in herself, who carries dignity, who doesn't allow temporary emotions to destroy something meaningful. See, when you know your worth, you move differently. You don't fight for attention. You attract respect. You don't argue to prove your value. You become valuable by being consistent, loving, and unshakable. Let me tell you something real today. There's a kind of woman a man never forgets, not because she is the prettiest, not because she posts the perfect pictures, but because she carries something deeper, something he feels in his soul. It's not about chasing him, convincing him, or constantly asking if he loves you. It's when your presence speaks louder than your words, when your silence holds more power than any argument, when who you are becomes a comfort that stays with him long after you leave the room. See, a man might be surrounded by people, by noise, by work, but if you have ever touched his soul, he will still feel you in that quiet space inside his heart. And that doesn't come from pretending to be perfect. It comes from being real with your heart, your faith, your emotions, and your strength. When you care deeply, but you don't lose yourself in the process. You love him, but you still remember your worth. You know what makes a man feel you in his soul. When you choose peace over drama. When you know you could yell, you could argue, you could insult, but instead you choose to speak with calm, with grace, and walk away when disrespect enters the room. Because peace is louder than chaos. A man may be attracted to beauty, but he is moved by peace. He remembers the woman who didn't bring storms into his life, but brought calm. He remembers the woman who didn't embarrass him, who didn't try to control him, but respected him even when he was struggling. A man feels you in his soul when he knows you are not with him because you need something, but because you believe in something, his purpose, his growth. When you pray for him, even when he doesn't know you do. When he is tired and you don't add pressure. When he fails and you don't walk away. When you remind him of who he is, especially when he forgets himself. But let's make one thing clear. Being this woman doesn't mean you tolerate disrespect. It means you know when to stay calm and when to walk away. You don't beg to be seen. You don't compete for attention. Your worth is not up for negotiation. You don't chase love. You attract it by being who you are, steady, loving, patient, but not blind. You set boundaries, not walls. You love him, but you love yourself too. And when a man sees that you have a soft heart and a strong backbone, he feels it deep in his soul. You become unforgettable when your love doesn't come from fear, but from strength. When you don't try to change him, but inspire him to grow. When your silence speaks louder than noise. When you can sit with him in his pain without judging him. When you allow him to be human, to be imperfect, and yet push him to be better. Not by force, but by example. This kind of woman is not loud. She is not desperate. She is not always seen by the world, but she is always felt by the heart that was lucky enough to know her. Because she is rare. She is peaceful. She is loyal, but she is also wise enough to walk away when love becomes one-sided. And if a man ever feels this kind of woman in his soul, he knows he may never meet another like her again. You know what most people don't understand? Real love isn't about how loud you are, how many texts you send, or how much you prove yourself. Real love is quiet strength. It's when you don't have to chase someone to make them see your value, because the way you carry yourself already shows it. When a woman understands this, she stops begging for attention and starts becoming the kind of woman a man feels in his soul. And let me tell you, that kind of woman doesn't show up in every man's life. But when she does, she changes him. It's the way she listens, really listens, without interrupting or trying to win the argument. The way she lets him be vulnerable without using his weaknesses against him. The way she can be soft, but never weak. She can love deeply, but she never loses her identity in the process. Her love doesn't trap him. It frees him. Because she believes that if someone truly wants to stay, they will stay without being chained, without being controlled. There are moments in a man's life where everything feels too heavy. Pressure, expectations, failures he doesn't talk about. And the world might see him as strong, unbreakable, but deep down he's tired. And it's in that moment when he remembers the one person who brought peace to his life, who didn't make him feel small for feeling weak. A woman who didn't laugh at his pain or compare him to other men. Instead, she became a place where his heart could rest. That feeling, that peace, he feels it long after she's gone, because that kind of love touches the soul. But understand this clearly, being that woman doesn't mean you accept less than you deserve. It doesn't mean you wait around for someone who doesn't value you. It means you love with purity, but also with strength. You can be gentle, but still have a line that no one is allowed to cross. You know when to give love and when to protect your heart. Because a woman who knows her worth, who knows when to walk away, is more powerful than a woman who stays and loses herself. What makes a man feel you in his soul is not when you try to make him jealous, not when you cry to keep him, not when you beg him to see your value. It's when you quietly step back and let your absence speak. Because when a woman has been kind, loyal, loving, and still chooses to walk away when she's taken for granted, that's when a man realizes what he lost. Your silence becomes louder than anything you could have ever said. He remembers the way you believed in him when no one else did. He remembers how you stayed calm when everything was falling apart, how you trusted his vision, even when it wasn't clear yet. And one day, when he's alone, when the noise of life gets quiet, that's when he feels you. Not in his mind, not in his heart, but deep in his soul. Because you were not just a person in his life, you were a blessing he didn't know how to handle. People often think love is about holding on, but sometimes love is also about letting go with grace. Walking away not because you stopped loving, but because you started loving yourself more. And that kind of strength is what leaves a permanent mark on a man's soul. He may move on, he may meet others, but a woman who loved him with dignity, patience, and self-respect, she is unforgettable. So don't worry about being perfect. Don't worry about forcing love. Just be real, be kind, be strong, and be willing to walk away when love stops being love. Because the woman who carries both softness and strength, that's the woman he feels forever. Let me tell you something about a woman who reaches a man's soul. She doesn't have to be the loudest in the room. She doesn't have to impress everyone. She doesn't even have to try too hard. Her power is quiet, but it's strong. It's in the way she walks with dignity, the way she speaks with intention, and the way she loves without losing herself. She's not perfect, she's not flawless, but she is real. And real is rare. You see, anybody can love when things are easy, when life is smooth, when everything is going right. But what makes a man feel a woman deep in his soul is what she does when everything goes wrong. When he's broken, tired, stressed, confused, how she responds in those moments defines the connection. If she panics with him, judges him, or makes him feel smaller than his problems, he will pull away. But if she sees beyond the mess, if she reminds him that failure doesn't make him less of a man, if she stands by him respectfully instead of trying to control him, that stays with him forever. But hear me clearly, this doesn't mean she becomes his therapist, his mother, or someone who fixes every broken part of him. No, it means she supports, but she doesn't lose herself trying to save him. She encourages, but she doesn't force. She stands beside him, not in front trying to lead him, and not behind waiting to be dragged along. She understands that real love is about partnership, not possession. And there's something else. A woman who touches a man's soul doesn't fight for attention. She doesn't run after him when he pulls away. She doesn't send 1,000 messages asking, "Do you still love me?" Because she knows her value is not based on how much he chooses her, but how much she chooses herself. She can love deeply and still let go if she is not valued. That balance of having a soft heart but strong boundaries is what makes her unforgettable. You know why he feels her in his soul? Because she doesn't just connect with his good side, she connects with his truth. She knows his fears, his doubts, his dreams, and she holds them with care. She doesn't laugh at his wounds. She doesn't use his vulnerability to win arguments. She respects his silence. She prays for him when he doesn't even know it. And when she says, "I believe in you," she means it, even when he doesn't believe in himself. This kind of woman doesn't come with noise. She comes with purpose. She doesn't compete with other women. She competes with the woman she was yesterday. She's not perfect, but she's growing. She's not the loudest, but she's the most consistent. She doesn't post everything for approval because she knows love isn't built for the internet. It's built in quiet moments, behind closed doors, in loyalty when no one is watching. And let me say this, if a man takes this kind of woman for granted, if he ignores her worth, if he plays with her heart, life has a way of teaching him. Because when she finally walks away, she doesn't scream, she doesn't break things, she doesn't try to make him miserable. She just leaves with grace. And that silence, that absence, that missing piece, that's when he feels her the most. That's when he realizes she wasn't just another woman. She was his safe place, his answered prayer. And he let her go. And he will search for that feeling again. In other faces, other hands, other voices. But what touches the soul cannot be replaced. Because it wasn't just love she gave, it was peace, loyalty, patience, and strength all in one. And no man, no matter how strong, ever forgets a woman like that. Let me break it down for you. When a woman touches a man's soul, it's not because she tries to be perfect. It's because she's real. She doesn't hide behind filters, fake attitudes, or pretend to be someone she's not just to impress him. She's honest about who she is, what she feels, and what she believes in. And that kind of honesty, it's rare. The world is full of people trying to be liked, trying to fit in, but she stands out because she's true to herself. She doesn't rush love. She does love. She doesn't beg to be seen. She knows that what is real doesn't need to be forced. She's patient, but not foolish. She gives her heart, but she gives it wisely. She listens to his words, but she also watches his actions. She can love him deeply, but if she ever feels disrespected, unloved, or taken for granted, she knows how to step back. She doesn't create drama, she creates distance. And silence from a woman like this, it's loud, it's powerful, it makes a man stop and think. A woman like this touches a man's soul because she brings something nobody else does. Peace. You can't buy it, you can't fake it. A man might be around many people, but he still feels empty. Yet, when he's around her, even in silence, he feels calm. She doesn't push, doesn't pressure, doesn't try to control him. She speaks with respect, she listens with patience, and even when she's upset, she doesn't destroy with words. Instead, she chooses her dignity over winning an argument. But don't mistake her softness for weakness. She may love deeply, but she can walk away forever if that love starts to hurt her more than heal her. She's not afraid of being alone because she knows loneliness is still better than being with someone who doesn't value her. She understands that staying where she's not appreciated is not love. It's self-betrayal. So she leaves quietly, gracefully, and with her head held high. And that's when a man feels her the most. Not when she's texting him, not when she's calling him, but when she stops, when her presence turns into absence, when her voice turns into silence. Because this time she didn't leave to make him chase her. She left because she finally remembered who she is. And a man may not realize it at first, but life has a way of showing him what he lost. He'll meet people who talk like her, but don't understand like her. He'll meet faces that smile like hers, but don't feel like home. You see, a woman who touches the soul doesn't just love you when everything is easy. She loves you through your doubts, your fears, your bad days. She doesn't give up when life gets messy. But what makes her different is that she loves herself too. She knows that love without self-respect is not love at all. So she gives, but she doesn't let herself be empty. She supports, but she doesn't carry everything alone. She prays for you, but she also prays for strength for herself. She may not be loud, she may not show off, but her love leaves an impact. Not the kind you forget in a few weeks, but the kind that stays like a voice in your mind, like a piece you didn't know you needed. And when a man feels that kind of love, he doesn't just remember her, he feels hurt. In his heart, in his mind, in his soul. There's a difference between being wanted for a moment and being felt for a lifetime. A woman who is felt in a man's soul isn't the one who chases love or forces herself into someone's life. She's the one who chooses to be present with grace and absent with dignity. She's not loud about her love, but her love is strong, deep, and unforgettable. She doesn't try to convince anyone to stay. She believes if love is real, it will stand on its own, without begging, without chasing, without losing herself. You know what makes her unforgettable? It's the way she can love him and still love herself. She doesn't break herself into pieces just to keep someone else whole. She gives kindness, but she doesn't allow it to be mistaken for weakness. She gives loyalty, but she doesn't allow it to be taken for granted. She knows her heart is rare, and because of that, she handles it with wisdom. A man feels her in his soul when her love comes with peace, not with drama, not with competition, not with emotional games. When he's with her, he feels safe, not ashamed. He can show his scars, his fears, and his flaws, and she doesn't use them to hurt him later. She listens to understand, not to attack. She speaks softly, but her softness has power because it comes from strength, not desperation. And yet, she isn't afraid to walk away when love stops feeling like love. She doesn't make loud exits. She doesn't try to cause pain. She just stops showing up in places where she's no longer valued. She chooses her peace over their confusion. That's when her absence becomes louder than her presence ever was. That's when a man begins to feel her, not around him, but inside him. What touches his soul is not how beautiful she looked, but how beautiful she made life feel. How she prayed for him in silence. How she supported him when no one was watching. How she didn't leave when he was at his lowest, but she left when he stopped appreciating her. She didn't punish him, didn't try to prove anything. She just respected herself enough to let go. She knows love isn't proven by how much you can tolerate. Love is shown by how much you can grow together, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. She doesn't demand perfection. She just expects effort. She doesn't want the world from him. She just wants honesty, consistency, and respect. And if that is too much for someone, she understands they were never meant to hold something as precious as her. He will try to move on, maybe even find distractions. But real peace, the kind she brought, is not something he will find in temporary people. He'll miss the way she cared without making him feel controlled. He'll miss how she brought calmness into chaos. 100 voices may speak to him, but none will sound like the peace she gave. And that's when he realizes she wasn't just another woman, she was a blessing. But here's the truth. She didn't become this woman overnight. She became this woman through pain, through lessons, through heartbreaks that taught her the difference between being wanted and being valued. She learned that love doesn't ask you to lose yourself. She learned that her silence can speak louder than her words. She learned that her worth is not something she needs to convince someone to see. So when she chooses to love, she loves fully. But when she chooses to leave, she leaves completely. No games, no half goodbyes. She leaves with peace, and that peace stays with him even when she doesn't. because the kind of love she gave wasn't ordinary. It was pure. It was loyal. It was soul deep. You know, people talk a lot about love, but not many understand what it means to touch someone's soul. It's easy to catch someone's eye. It's easy to get attention for a moment, but to live in someone's soul, to stay in their spirit, even when you're gone, that's different. That comes from how you loved, how you respected, how you carried yourself when everything wasn't perfect. A woman who reaches a man's soul isn't the loudest. She's not begging to be seen. She is simply herself, and that becomes unforgettable. She doesn't need to prove her worth because she lives it. She doesn't argue to show she's right every time. She chooses peace because she knows her energy is valuable. She doesn't compete with others for his attention. She competes only with herself to grow, to evolve, to become a better version of who she was yesterday. And because of this, she becomes the kind of woman a man feels even in his quiet moments, when the world is silent and it's just him and his thoughts. There's something about the way she loves, soft but firm, kind but not naive. She gives him space to be a man, but she also gives him a place to rest his soul. She sees his potential, but she doesn't force him to change. She encourages, but she never demands. She doesn't embarrass him in front of others. She doesn't use his mistakes as weapons. Instead, she stands beside him even when life is rough, but she never loses sight of herself while doing it. And here's the truth. He may not realize her value while she's there. Sometimes comfort makes people blind. He may think she'll always stay. He may take for granted her silence, her patience, her presence. But one day when she stops arguing, stops explaining, stops showing up, that's when reality hits. That's when he understands it wasn't weakness when she stayed. It was love. And it wasn't ego when she left. It was self-respect. What he feels in his soul isn't just her love. It's her absence filled with everything she gave. The prayers she made for him in secret, the times she forgave without mentioning it, the way she calmed his storms instead of adding to them. He remembers how she never tried to control him, how she believed in his dreams, even when they weren't guaranteed. He remembers the softness in her voice, the strength in her silence, the warmth in her presence. And that's what makes her unforgettable. But don't get it twisted. She didn't stay because she was weak. She stayed because she believed in love. And she didn't leave because she stopped loving. She left because she finally chose herself. She learned that loving someone should not require losing the person you are. She learned that you can pray for someone and still walk away. She learned that closure isn't always a conversation. Sometimes it is accepting what their actions already said. A woman like this, she grows through everything she's been through. She doesn't become cold, she becomes wiser. She doesn't stop loving, she starts loving better, beginning with herself. She doesn't build walls, she builds boundaries. She doesn't carry bitterness, she carries lessons. And when she loves again, she loves with clarity. No chasing, no begging, no proving. Just presence, dignity, and peace. He might move on. She might move on. Life continues. But the kind of woman who touched a man's soul doesn't disappear from his memory. Even if time passes, even if they never speak again, there will always be moments, quiet ones, where he feels her again. Not because she tried to be unforgettable, but because she was real in a world full of temporary.